The credit market outlook took a sharp turn for the worse in the second quarter. That's according to the latest survey conducted by the International Association of Credit Portfolio Managers. For more, I'm joined by Samlok Leong, Executive Director of the IACPM. Good to see you once again.
Thanks for inviting me.
Well, my first question is, what in the world happened? Why did things get so dismal in the second quarter?
Well, I think the most concise answer is what's happened in Spain. There's been continued turmoil in Europe. It continues not to be resolved. And I think we're starting to see where that's having follow-on effects to a lot of the rest of the world. We see growth slowing in China because of the effect and linkages of Europe and China. Just this week, the European Bank for Reconstruction said that Russia is slowing down also because of these correlation effects. So it continues to spread.
Are investors then just losing confidence that Europe will be resolved?
Well, I think that's part of it, in that it's dragged on for a long time, and every near-term solution really just pushes the problem out a bit further. There's not been a very decisive and clear wrap-up to the problem, and as long as that continues, the uncertainty will weigh on everything.
Right. There's a lot of meetings and gatherings of officials, but still it drags on. What's the effect in the U.S.? What are we seeing here in the U.S.? And is the problem in the U.S. solely because of Europe, or is the U.S. facing its own slowdown that's weighing in?
I think there are multiple things happening in the U.S. Certainly, the U.S. sees an effect from Europe, but I think we have our own problems as well. There's not a lot of recovery to our recovery. It continues to muddle along, and it doesn't seem to ever reach the point where it picks up steam. And I think people are starting to worry about that more and more. And I think we're even seeing signs from the Fed. Many Fed officials are starting to talk about thinking about taking more action, which is certainly a precursor to them actually doing something.
I wonder how much that played out in the numbers. Just again, because that started to pick up in Q2, that sort of language.
And I think that tends to concern people. So actually, when we do these surveys, we also talk to a lot of our members and also our board of directors, and we get a lot of the anecdotal feedback. And certainly these things weigh on everyone.
And what were some of the anecdotal things that you heard that really hit home for you?
Well, I think the biggest topic of discussion was the dragging on effects from Europe. By coincidence or by karma, the ICPM's European conference was in Madrid the week after Bankia was taken over by the Spanish government.
Oh, wow.
And the discussions there were all about this: how do we get to the end game? And the worry that came out of it was that there was really no answer to that question.
Now, the outlook also turned more negative for Asia and Australia. Tell me a little bit more if that is the follow-on effect, the worries about what's happening in China, on top of what we know is not getting resolved in Europe.
Right. Well, and for China, it's certainly all relative. Their slowdown for us would be an amazing
we would love
outcome.
That. Exactly.
So it's relative, but that the linkages between where Europe sends its goods and where Europe gets manufacturing from are very, very clear. And when that happens, a lot of what's happening in Australia is their linkages to the rest of Asia. It amazes me that one of our board members is from an Australian bank, and he's telling me about how Mandarin is now being regularly taught in Australian schools. That is an indication of that linkage, and they're seeing that knock-on effect.
The negative numbers that we're seeing in this particular quarter, what does that mean for the financial markets day-to-day here now in the next quarter?
Well, I think that what we're seeing and what we will continue to see is a lot of uncertainty and a lot of, as a result of that, a lot of bouncing around in the markets. Until something clear and unexpected happens to resolve things, I think we're going to muddle around where we currently are.
One bright spot, perhaps, was that the longer-term outlook wasn't as bleak in this latest survey. Does that tell us that maybe we're bottoming here?
I certainly hope so. It's hard to draw that conclusion just from the survey results, but I certainly hope so. And I saw the latest Case-Shiller numbers. It seems like we might be reaching a bottom, at least in some parts of the U.S. real estate market. That's all that we can hope for, I think.
All right, Samlok Leong, good to talk to you once again. Thanks so much.
Great, thank you.
I'm Rhonda Schaffler. This is Reuters.